This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, Gage.
Hey, Arch. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, Aaron. Again.
Hi, Howard.
Hey, what's happening?
Are we dancing in the streets again?
Yeah, I'm so happy I could just go out and sing in the parking lot.
Okay. Hi, Scott.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Gage. Don't know you.
Okay, am I on?
Who's that?
Sounds good.
All right. Are we waiting for everybody or everybody here?
Looks like everyone's here.
I think you have a quorum, Scott.
Yeah, I'd say 100% of the quorum.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we need to start the meeting. As of 7:05, and as soon as we get a secretary, I guess we can start recording. Before we get started, I want to ask if there's anybody. I don't see anybody other than Paul. Paul, do you have any general comments that don't pertain to the items on the agenda?
I'm new. Mr. Chairman, thank you for asking.
All right. We did start the meeting by welcoming our new members. Kent, glad to have you. Mike, glad to have you too. And Paul, you too. So glad you all are here. You're all sworn in, I assume, all three of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the next order of business, I think, is to elect a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary. Do I have any nominations?
You nominated Scott as the chair. You did an excellent job, and Jim as the vice chair.
Sounds good.
Okay. Comments by others? Do we have other comments or other nominations? If there are no other nominations, I guess we need to get a vote. All those in favor of Scott Cameron, chairman, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Do we have any other nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Howard.
No.
No, you've been wanting to do that.
If there are no other nominations, I'll ask for a vote. Those in favor, raise your hand.
In favor of what?
Anybody opposed to Howard? And do we have a nomination for secretary? I know everybody wants that job. We've got to have one. So please have, if no nomination, let me have a volunteer.
I'd like to nominate Aaron.
I think Aaron is probably otherwise occupied. Well, we're going to have to appoint one if I don't get a volunteer. I know Jim has served and he's done his duties. I don't assume you want to do it again, Jim.
No, I don't. I think somebody else ought to share in that fun.
Paul, are you very good at secretarial work?
No, not yet. Give me a little time.
It's pretty, I understand it's pretty easy because all of these are recorded. So it's pretty easy to just transcribe what has happened in the meetings. How about you, Gage?
Well, yeah.
I prefer not, but
You prefer not, but you're not going to decline, are you? I know Ant and Mike are brand new, so I'm not sure how they feel about it. Do you one of y'all like to have that job? No?
You
I
can't
see
get.
head shaking. Well, I'm going to have to appoint a secretary apparently. And I tend, Gage, unless you have a really, really strong objection, I'd like to ask you to do that job.
yeah, that's okay. I know we've got to have someone there, Scott. So that's fine.
All right. I'm going to appoint Gage, so we don't have to make a vote. The next order of business is to pick a meeting date and time. In the past, last year, we had the second Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Second Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock. Is that still good for everyone? Does anyone have a problem with the second Wednesday at 7 o'clock? I don't see any objections. I don't hear any objections.
No.
There are none.
So we'll set the time on the second Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock, either by a video conference or in the chambers at City Hall. I assume they're normally free. Is that correct, Roy?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
All right. Well, that's taken care of then. Now let's go to the remainder of the agenda. Arch, do you have any comments?
Just a couple.
Say again.
First of all, thanks. First of all, thanks and welcome back. I want to thank all our new commissioners for agreeing to spend the next 2 years with us. I had the pleasure of serving with Kent several years ago when we both served on the Board of Adjustment. I also know Paul from his service on Planning and Zoning, which I used to attend their meetings. As I used to tell them, I did that for the entertainment factor. I'll also be serving with Mike for the first time. But I can say that he's been on several city advisories before this, and he's always been a popular choice when committee selections were being made. So welcome to one and all. You'll be hearing more about some jobs that we've been assigned by City Council. The first will be introduced by Mr. Jambor at the next meeting, and this has to do with the review of the sign ordinance. Later on, we'll be asked to consider and make recommendations for problem resolution involving possible penalties for gross permit violations that are occurring right now in the business sector, where accessory buildings, fences, and possibly even homes have been constructed without proper permits. We've touched briefly in the past on this possibility of requiring contractor licensing as a possible solution, and we'll be expected to revisit those and other considerations again. Thanks for your attention, and I look forward to another good year as your council liaison.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we get too far, our normal meeting time is the first Wednesday of the month, and I thought I heard you say the second Wednesday, and I had a chance to check the city website. The second Wednesday is the normal meeting date of the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether that was intentional or a slip of the tongue, or whether you were intending to move it.
It was probably a step at the time.
Right.
Is the first Wednesday a problem for anyone on the commission? First Wednesday at 7 o'clock, would that work for everyone?
It's fine with me.
Go ahead.
It's good.
Good, okay. First Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock, as defined, video conference or in chambers. Arch, do you have any other comments you want to make? No?
No, sir,
Arch?
go ahead.
Okay.
That was it.
The next, first item on the business agenda otherwise is the review and consideration of variance requested by Paul Smith. Paul, are you going to recuse yourself? I assume you will.
Yeah.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to review the variance as written in the notes provided by Roy? Is there anyone that has not?
Variance 21-1754-VAR.
That's correct, 20-1754-VAR, 21001 National Drive. The request is for an additional driveway at that residence.
Right.
On the, what, I guess it's the east side of the residence, Paul?
Yeah, what I want to do is have a driveway for a 3-car garage that I want to put in. And that's why I'm asking for, to get a driveway. Now, I can make it narrower according to what's written in the proposal here, which is not a problem, but I would like to have it that wide. I can make it narrower if I need to be. That's not a problem.
All right, Roy, would you like to give your comments?
Well, yes, sir. I think what he might be referring to is, and the way the standard is written, it's 24 feet max, 18 feet preferred. And typically what that means is you would cross the property line at a width of 18 feet, and then you could make it as wide as you wanted to once you were past that property line. So he would have 25 feet, if you will, to widen it that additional 2 feet. That's the reference in the staff report. I don't know that it makes that much difference there, but that is the way the standard is written.
Are there any safety issues, Roy?
No, sir. Typically we look at separation between distances between driveways, driveways on the other side of the street, and distances to intersections. There were no problems here with any of those.
Okay, thank you.
Comments by other members of the commission? If not, is there any other further discussion at all? Someone like to make a motion as to approving this variance?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance as written.
Any discussion on the motion? Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
That was Jim.
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise a hand so I can see it. Okay, I'll raise my hand. Motion to approve the variance is approved. Therefore, the variance is approved. The next item on the agenda is the variance 20-1755. Has everyone had a chance to review that? Has anyone not had a chance to review this variance? I guess I should read the gist of the ordinance, which, or the variance is request for a driveway from the property at 2805 Ward Cove. The applicant is Miss Julia Kidd, and requested for a driveway. Let's see. What is the width of that driveway is not clear to me. Ms. Kidd, would you like to discuss?
Yes, absolutely. So we actually purchased, can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. We actually purchased the lot next to us and since consolidated those lots so we are able to put in a driveway. The width would be 12 feet and then it would go 35 feet back.
I think is it getting wider or narrower as you go deeper? It looks like you've grown it to go narrower.
Yes, that is correct. So it will be wider at the base so that it's easier to pull into.
Gotcha. That's fine. We just, normally it's the other way around. So that's what made us question it. Normally it's
okay.
on the property, but other than the flare at the it flares usually at the paving, but not at the property line. You've got it flaring at the property line.
Yes, from the street it'll be wider.
Right. Well, yeah, and no problem. But typically, what we're saying is that you would maintain 12 feet through the right of way, which is the city's property, and then you would flare it right there at the paving with a radius or an angle.
Okay, if that's what you prefer, I can relay that information to.
That's what we wanted to make sure that was wide enough, and you didn't need wider, or what your intent was. Carl can work with you at the permit. We just needed to make sure we approve it correctly here.
Okay, I appreciate that.
That's what.
All right, do I understand that it's going to be 12 feet at the roadway and then it gets wider as it crosses the property line? Is that what you're saying?
Actually, what she was saying, it would be 12 feet wide at the property line, and it would flare slightly at the paving, the way it normally does with a radius, and then it would actually get narrower on her property.
Yeah.
All right, well. It's confusing to me.
Flip-flop this now?
Say again?
Are you going to make it 12 foot wide at the street and then 5 foot wide on the property?
No. It's just 35 feet back onto the property is kind of like the length of it.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It looks like she has it drawn maybe somewhere between 9 and 10 feet wide at the deepest part on her property.
Okay.
Is that reasonably accurate?
It just, so we don't need it to be very wide. We're just going to put our boat on it.
Gotcha.
So however, the width of our boat is whatever would fit that. So,
That'll easily fit 9 feet, probably.
okay.
Roy, do you
That's-
see any safety issues?
No, sir, none whatsoever. In fact, the adjacent lot, its driveway is on another street.
Okay.
It's around the corner. Yeah, I mean, a typical commercial parking space is 9 feet wide, if that's good
Okay.
enough for you.
All right. Are we clear? Does anyone else have questions or need clarification? Do I have a motion to approve variance?
I make a motion to approve the variance.
Have a second?
I second it.
Is that
Who was that second?
That's Mike. It's
Mike?
Keith.
Paul or Mike?
Mike,
Okay. Do I have any further discussion on the motion? Those in favor of approving the variance 1755, raise your hand. Motion is approved. Unanimously. All right. As you go down the agenda here. Next item on the agenda. Review and possible recommendations of a potential draft ordinance amendment section 3.123. Parenthesis A, parenthesis closed. Chapter 3 regarding exceptions to setback requirements contained in Chapter 14. Is there anyone that has not had time to review or has not reviewed that proposed revision?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And I could use some help here. There were a couple of things on that list that I really didn't completely understand, mainly because of my lack of knowledge. You know, it mentioned buried septic systems, for example. If those are 100% below grade, they're not a structure in the first place. But I don't know enough about them to know that is there any part that sticks up above the ground? I don't really know. So I left it in there because it was already in there, although I wasn't sure it belonged in the list in the first place.
Hey, Roy, this is Howard. I have a question for you. Are
Yes,
we
sir.
talking about the setbacks for like the homes, the 25-foot setbacks? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir. And once again, as you're aware, because you're on the Board of Adjustments, what we're trying to do is get this to reference Chapter 14 for the details and make sure it's consistent. And
Right.
like I said, setbacks prohibitions deal with structures. And like in-ground swimming pools, for example, are not a structure, but it was listed there. It didn't use the word in-ground. Now, an above-ground swimming pool is a structure. Like I said, the other one that kind of confused me a little bit was the septic systems. But once again, I can imagine, there might be a packaged treatment plant that might be partially above ground. I don't know. I mean, I can imagine there is such a thing. So I left it on there. But if it really doesn't belong on there, somebody tell me, I'll take it off.
Lord,
May
I interject? Aren't those questions for the people today, not our commission? Isn't the PNC in charge of setback?
Roy.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, it was already in here. You're correct. Normally it doesn't appear in chapter 3 at all. But it's here, and all I'm trying to do is reference it back to chapter 14.
Well, that's what you did, and I think that's what we're voting on. I don't think we need to consider whether the structures are up, above, or below, or whatever. I think.
Right. Maybe that thing doesn't belong on the list at all. I just honestly don't know.
Jim Carson's got a question. Jason's got a question.
Okay, Jim.
This thing's a lot more complicated because chapter 14 defers chapter 3 in some instances. So we
You're
are
garbled, Jim.
Oh. Okay. How about, is this better? Is this any better?
Yes, that's better. As long as you're looking, thinking at the mic.
So chapter 14 currently defers to chapter 3 in some instances. So that involves us. And I think Roy is trying to get rid of that, you know, and have chapter 3 do all the deferring to chapter 14. But right now we're involved.
What was that last statement?
I said right now we're involved because as they're written right now, there are sections of chapter 14 that will say, you know, things are not allowed unless specifically allowed herein, meaning chapter 14, or in the building code. So it defers to the building code some things. So it does involve us.
Right. And just for your reference, last night the P&Z recommended that the changes to chapter 14 be forwarded to the city council. So we're asking you to give us a recommendation on the changes to chapter 3 so we can take those all up at the same time.
What would the recommendations be, Roy? I'm a little confused here.
Well, they're in your packet, Howard.
Oh, okay. I must have missed it somewhere.
Yeah, it's in red, and it says, you know, chapter 14 is here for your information only. It's at the end.
I don't have anything in red.
Okay.
Well, what he has, Howard, he has basically said that these particular items should be referred back to chapter 14 and not be considered part of chapter 3.
Okay.
Which is, I believe that to be correct.
That's a fair statement. Yes, sir. It's still, there are placeholders in there, but it refers you back to 14 in each case.
Right. I see it now.
Right.
That's why I didn't get to it. It's at the back.
Yeah, it's the last item.
So,
okay, Jim. Jim?
You know, I was reading the chapter 14 part of it as well as this. And there's so many references to structure in both of those chapters. And if you read the definition of structure, you know, it could be anything. It could be a fire pit. It could be, you know, it's anything that's located on the ground, basically.
Yep.
So if you start applying that definition to every place that you have the word structure in chapter 3 and in chapter 14, the whole thing starts to just fall apart. I mean, I really don't think either one of these chapters are ready to go to council. I mean, I understand that there's an issue that needs to be resolved pretty quickly, but to do this much, you know, changes, this many changes on it, I can't see that it's ready. I mean, there's a lot of issues with this thing. And
I have a better definition of structure. The one I have is a little unique. The one that's in your ordinance is pretty typical. for the same reason that Mr. Kaysen mentioned, I really have never cared for it. What I have always cared for is, a definition that says things like the following are structures, but they're exempt. And it's not an exhaustive list, it's an illustrative list. And that gives you an idea that there are certain structures that you are to ignore because they're fine and they don't present either a visual obstruction or a privacy issue.
Hey, Roy, this is Howard again. I agree with Jim. There are so many conflicts between chapter 3 and chapter 14. Why don't we do something like adopt the international standards and then work on this stuff until
Howard,
yeah.
I promise you the definition you have is a standard and it's in chapter 14, and therefore it's really, I don't think that structure is defined in chapter 3 if I'm not mistaken. Now, I agree. It is?
It is defined and they're different. Chapter 3 and chapter 14 are different. Chapter 3 incorporates everything that's in 14, but then it goes a lot further and it gets very confusing when it does.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, if your recommendation is that I go work on those definitions some more, I would agree with Jim. I don't like the standard definition. It's not very good in my opinion.
Well, and the other thing, Roy, when you start looking at these things, you've got to define the difference between a porch, an uncovered porch, and a deck, because the definitions that I've seen other places of porches, a porch is defined as being under the roof line of the house, and so you say an uncovered porch out there past the roof line of the house, and what's the difference between a porch and a deck? Porch is in the front yard, maybe deck's in the back, but that kind of stuff needs to be defined.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at. In my opinion, a better definition is illustrative than exhaustive. If you try and identify every exception and define it precisely, you will never be finished with this. There will be new structures showing up 5 years from now that were not contemplated today. And that's why I think the definition that you're referring to, which was written in 1927 roughly, is not very good anymore. And I have a better one. And if you guys want to defer this till I get you better definitions in both chapters, I have no objection to that. I think that's a very reasonable request.
This discussion is for another time. We have a specific item on the agenda, and that is to look at the proposed change to Chapter 3, which just refers certain items back to Chapter 14. So there's not a conflict between the two codes. I think that's what we need to discuss and take care of, and not go into these philosophical discussions. We could do that at another meeting. Does anybody object to my comment? So, does anybody have a motion to accept the proposed change to Chapter 3 as presented?
Mr. Chairman, would you mind taking public comments before you vote?
Say that again.
Would you mind taking public comments before you vote?
Take comments?
Public comments?
Public comments.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Just in that philosophical discussion, something that crossed my mind is, however this is resolved, just one thing that could be inside setbacks that I'd like you guys to consider along with PG is things like a simple landing for a tram that might be inside of setbacks, like pavers, for example. inside of that setback. That's all. Thank you. God bless you.
Oh, I think that's a subject for another discussion, not today. I'd like to call for a motion whether or not to approve this change to chapter 3.123. Do I have a motion to?
Can I ask just one question before we go to a motion? Now, as I'm understanding this, all you're really doing is referring that there are items in both chapter 3 and chapter 14 that pertain to this particular issue. Is that it? And that's
Yes,
all
sir.
saying that there's more than one.
And what Mr. Kaysen was saying is I missed one, and I think he might be right.
All right, which one is it? Do we need to amend
There's
the,
I hadn't found it yet, but he tells me there's a definition of structure in there. And if there is and it's different, I need to fix it. But I'll bring that back.
In chapter 3,
I'll get Mr. Kaysen to email me, or I'll find it. I'll do a word search.
I'm sending it to you now, Roy.
Okay. I'll bring it back to you next month.
Okay.
all right, now we're back to the revision at hand. Do I have a motion to accept or approve the proposed revision as presented in the documents? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the revisions as printed.
We have a motion by Mike. Do we have any discussion? Do we have a second? Do we have any more discussion on it that relates to this specific change? Jim?
I personally don't think we're ready to accept those revisions. I think they need to be, we need to wait until the chapter 14 revisions are ready and make sure we're together with them. I think it's a bigger issue than just accepting those revisions.
I agree. This is Howard.
Even though the revision is to try to separate the two.
Yeah. There's
All right. I hear some discord there.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and go ahead. Are you still talking, Jim?
I can. I just think there's a lot of things going on here, and I understand, and Roy and Howard know this. There's an issue with Board of Adjustments that needs to be resolved fairly quickly, and that's probably what's driving this right now. But I think that issue, in my opinion, is actually resolved. It doesn't address the issue of building decks, that are way too high. And I know y'all don't understand this because it's part of the Board of Adjustments and chapter 14 and all that. But I don't think, just knowing what I know, I'm not going to be able to vote to approve these revisions.
Hey, Jim, the other thing that I have that's a problem, this is Howard. The other thing that I have a problem is the new guys may not have had a chance to look at chapter 3 thoroughly and really compare it to chapter 14. How many of the new guys, Paul, Kent, Mike, how many of you guys have had a chance to really go through chapter 3 and look at it?
I haven't.
There you go.
I haven't.
All right. Well, we still have a caller. Who is this? I have caller 1 on my screen, but I don't know who that is.
Caller 1.
I don't know. I don't hear anything.
I don't either.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. And we have some discussion, which is somewhat negative. Still have to resolve this. Yes, Jim, go ahead.
I just want to have one more discussion based on something that is in this revision that I don't understand. And it's under section 5.40 yards, item F. It
It's not
says,
being clear to me, Jim. Your voice is not clear. I can't hear you.
okay, is this better?
It is when you face the mic, yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Item 5.40, section F, item number 1. It says uncovered wood decks are permitted within the required rear yard setbacks when the maximum height above adjacent grade is less than 30 inches. Where's the adjacent grade? Which side of the deck is the adjacent grade on?
Typically a broadside.
Right. So which side?
means any place that it's more than 30 inches is prohibited.
That's
Right
not
there.
what it says.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's just say, I understand, and most lots are sloping away from the house, sloping down away from the house. So you're
That
gonna
means
go in,
if I
You're
can
gonna
put
go-
my tape anywhere and it's 30 inches or less, you're good. If I can put my tape anywhere and it's 30 inches or more, you're not good.
what about these decks that are built off of the second story on these homes that are, on a severe slope?
That cannot be in the setback without a variance, is what this says.
Okay? There's gonna be some problems.
I'm not aware of one, but
I'm aware of a neighbor who wants to rebuild his. I mean, I'm sure it's grandfathered right now. Well, and
are you sure it's in the setback?
Huh?
Are you sure it's in the setback?
Yeah. Well, it was. He's okay now because he bought the adjacent lot and he combined them. But I mean, it was in the setback. Definitely was in the setback. He had put a cover over it, which was, just fiberglass material, but still in the setback.
Right. Well, that would have been a violation under any chapter with a cover, but
Okay.
We still have a motion on the floor, and we still have an item that has to be resolved. Now, we're going to have to take a vote. If you want to vote for it, do that. If you want to vote against it, do that. But I'm calling for a vote. I don't know that we haven't had a second on this motion yet.
Hey, Scott, I think I'll defer to Aaron, but I think if you don't have a second, it just dies.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Chairman, who was your second on that? Because I know Mike made the motion. Did you get a second? Do we have a second? If you don't, then it's dead.
I don't think we did.
I heard a second, no.
Yeah. Then it just dies. There's no vote needed.
All right.
You guys are gonna break my heart on the first night here, Just joking.
I'll email Mr. Case and see if he won't help me find all the different conflicts. If I can find them, I can resolve them, I think.
All right. Well, this motion apparently is dead. and we'll revisit it at another meeting in some other way. I'm disappointed that we got into the side discussion. I don't believe that the side discussion related to the change that was proposed in this proposed amendment. But we'll consider that at another time. At this point, I guess we go to the consent agenda where we review the minutes of the last meeting, which was December 2nd last year. Has everyone had a chance to read these minutes? All those that were there anyway. Is there anyone that has not? Are there any suggested changes or corrections to the minutes of the meeting of December 2nd? I have some editorial. On the first page, at the end of the section that says business item number 2, the last sentence, Jim, there's an E missing between V and commission. Now the space.
I already took care of that.
And also, there are the other items, all of the references to committee should be changed to commission.
Okay.
Okay. All right. With those recommended corrections, do I have a motion to approve with the corrections?
I make a motion that we accept with the corrections.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who's that?
Paul.
Who is that?
Yeah.
Paul? Is that you? Who did the second? Just for the
Paul
record.
did.
Paul, okay.
Paul made the second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes of December 2nd meeting, please raise your hand.
I wasn't there, but I was anyway.
All right. Future agenda items. Obviously, we have some. Our council liaison has asked us to review the sign ordinance. We need to consider the control of contractors to be sure to do the right thing and they recommend if they don't. That needs to be discussed. Do we have any other future agenda items that anyone would like to add to the list? Obviously, we need to review the chapter 3 again. But, looks like that's going to be a real chore.
Scott, do we need this, Howard? Do we need a committee to look at the conflicts between chapter 3 and chapter 14 and get them all resolved? We either refer to chapter 14 or have ask the P&Z to have put in a thing referencing chapter 3, one of the two.
I think we do, Howard. We do need a subcommittee. Just to get some thoughts together so that we can present them to the P&Z and or our commission. I'll work on trying to put one together and see if we can get something that's worth discussing in the commission meeting.
Count me in.
All right. Any other items that anyone would like to add to the list? Any other discussion that is general discussion?
Hey, Scott,
Yes.
did you say there would be a committee to review 14 and 3? Chapter 3 and 14?
Say that again, Paul.
Did you say that there would be a committee, or did everybody agree that there should be a committee to review chapter 3 and chapter 14?
Yeah, a subcommittee, yes.
Okay, I'd like to be on that.
All right. All right, we'll put together something and I'll get back with you. If there's no other items that are grave concerns that we need to argue about, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. 7:53. Aaron, we don't need a motion, do we? No. Okay. All right, meeting's adjourned. 7:54.
Aaron, you look like you're suffering from allergies. I hope you feel better if you are. Yeah. They had pollen the other day. They said it was the worst since, what was it, 1939. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, 100 years or something like that. I mean, it was really something else. Yeah.
It's almost like smog, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
I know
thank you all
my
very much for being with us. Paul, Roberts, thank you again for and Aaron, thank you for participating. And so we'll see you next time.
Okay, take it easy. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.